So you want better success in your life, which means you want to change because you can't get something different from what you're getting unless you change. If you expect things to change by doing the same thing, I believe that is the definition for insanity. At least I've heard that quote. So if you really want more success in health or relationships or wealth, something has to give, something has to change. I'm going to share with you today 3 keys, 3 essentials that you have to have in order to change. If you don't have it, you might try, but you're basically fooling yourself. So the first one, and probably one of the most important ones, is motivation. You need to motivate yourself so that you can get over the hump, so you can get over the resistance. And guaranteed, there is resistance to change, and I'll go into that in a minute. So you want a vision, an idea of what it is that you want to bring into your life that will be the beacon that will get you through the rough spots. Many of my clients have come to me in the midst of a crisis. They want freedom from pain. I'm the first to tell you, pain is a powerful motivator. It can get you to do all sorts of things. For example, I stopped eating carbohydrates with meat because it created bloating in my body. And I said, oh, wow, that hurts. It did take me many, many months, maybe years, before I put those 2 things together. And there were a lot of times when I would forget. I'd be sitting at a restaurant and there would be this wonderful piece of bread, homemade, and I wouldn't be able to resist it. It takes a big vision to change, and pain alone may not be enough. And one of the problems with pain is as soon as the pain subsides, you forget, which was what happened to me. I would forget about the pain as soon as I saw a piece of bread in front of me. A vision is more compelling. So the bigger the vision, the more powerful it is. That is, the more enticing the vision is, the more desire is there, the more impact and the more support it will provide you. You need to ask yourself some questions about this vision to make sure that you really have it down. The first question is, why do you want it? Some of my clients have said, I want a partner. Well, why do you want a partner? That's the question. Why do you want a partner? Well, it'd be really great to have somebody else who could share the rent. Get a roommate. Don't get a partner. Well, it would be really nice to have somebody take care of me. Get a caregiver. Partnership is a work of spiritual proportion. It takes a lot of effort, focus, and investment of time. You want to have a partnership and a love relationship, it has to go deeper. It has to go into something that's compelling about who you are. I remember when it had been 13 years since my first husband had left me, and I had been doing spiritual work, so I didn't need a partner for a long time. And then finally, I decided it was time. I had healed the old wounds. I had forgiven my ex-husband, and I was ready. It was time. I was sort of segueing out of so much commitment to the Sufi work and really wanting a partner because that's who I am. That's part of who I am as a human being. And recognizing that and realizing that I was willing to do all the sacrifices and make all the commitments in order to get that result. So that's the third question. What do you need to do? What do you need to change in order to get the results that you want? If you want more money, if you want more wealth, you may need to change the work that you're doing, or you may need to cut down on your expenses, or you may need to have a partner who has another income. Maybe not. You need to figure out what you have to change in order to get the results. You want better health? You may need to change your diet. You may need to get more exercise. And if you're a couch potato and you do not like going outside, or it's scary to go outside, you need to think about this before you invest yourself in trying to change. You want to succeed, yes? There's no point in trying to change if you don't have the sense that you're going to succeed. And I'll talk about that in a minute too. The second essential key to changing, to getting more health, wealth, or love in your life, more success, the second one is commitment. That's why the vision needs to be so big, because that helps you to commit. Commitment, however, means two things. One is you need to take the action that we already talked about in the first one. You have to take action. And the problem with the action is it is likely to stir up things inside of you. There is a good reason why you are the way you are. And I call it early childhood behavior patterns. And these behavior patterns were put into place to enable you to survive. Maybe your family was chaotic. Maybe you didn't get enough love. Maybe there was abuse. You develop these patterns, sometimes one, sometimes more than one, to protect you, to protect this you as a small child, because you have to survive in the family that you are in. You create these patterns. And when you go against them, which I'm guessing you're going to have to go against some of them because they're probably what's holding you back, you will trigger fear and resistance and avoidance and all kinds of other behaviors, because your mind will say, the little inner child will say, oh no! And she'll trigger the body, and the body will go into protection mode, survival mode, fight, flee, freeze. So you could pick a fight with somebody so that you can't do anything. You could literally get yourself hurt so that you can't move forward. Oh, I can't do anything. My wrists are broken. I can't move forward. Or you could run away, do all kinds of avoidance. Now, we all have experience of avoidance. Like my husband, when it comes time for income tax, he does everything. He cleans his desk. He goes out and cleans his studio. It's actually a pretty good motivator for getting a lot of the rest of your life really organized. But there is that resistance. And there will be resistance when you try to change. When you start shifting behaviors, some of them you may not even be aware. They may be subconscious. You may not even be aware that you're sabotaging yourself, because that inner child, she's pretty ingenious about hiding what you're doing. So I'm going to talk about 3 patterns. The first pattern is the controller. This is a person who came from a very chaotic, maybe violent, very unsafe environment. And the child learned to control as much as she could, but she really felt out of control. Now, my mother was a controller in her own way. She was maybe a soft controller, but she was a controller because her father was an alcoholic, and it created a great deal of disruption and angst in her family. My husband also is a bit of a controller because he had a violent early childhood. Now, only some of the violence was taken out on him, but he has, and all of his sisters have this need to control things. They can't let things go. So the problem with the controller is that when you start to change, you have to let go of that controlling pattern. Some of that has to just be released. And as a PhD sociologist, psychosomatic therapist, I have learned that controllers are some of the most difficult clients to work with because they want to control you and they're not ready to give up control. And why should they? Because after all, their experience as a child, hi there, their experience as a child was that it was not safe to trust adults. So why would a child who went through a violent or dangerous early childhood want to trust anybody? That needs to be developed. You need to choose somebody that you actually can trust. Now, the second pattern is the people pleaser. And at first look, a people pleaser looks like a great client because they want to please their coach. They want to do everything for their coach and make the coach feel happy and congratulate them. But what I've noticed about people pleasers is they also have their limits. They also can please just so far, and then if it gets scary, they don't do it. They don't do the actions that they need to do. They have to also be pulled by that internal motivation to be willing to try the difficult stuff. And then the third pattern is the rebel. And she's a little bit like the controller. She's very hard to rein in because she wants to do everything contrary. She wants to do everything the opposite. So it takes a lot of work. She's not the favorite kind of client I would want to work with, is the rebel, because she wants to prove you wrong. Because then she says, well, I can't change. You can't change me. You can't. It's impossible for me to change. And that gets you off the hook. That's why the original motivation needs to be so powerful, is because those inner children, those inner patterns are going to try and trip you up. My original motivation to change my life, because I was a people pleaser and I lived that life for over 40 years. What caused me to change was when my mother died, she conveyed to me the message that if I didn't start living my life true to myself, I would die with regrets. And my mother was a poster child for living a life true to yourself. But I never appreciated that about her because I always felt neglected, because she put her vision and her goals before my needs as a child to be loved, cherished, and appreciated. But she was a great role model for taking care of her business. After she died, I decided to make a film because I was so impacted by her death and by the death of my father. I decided to make a film about opening to the experience of death. And I was scared out of my mind. I was like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. I knew some things, but I really had never made a documentary before. And it was a learning. And there were many times when I wanted to run away, when I wanted to quit. Now, there were some things that kept me going. One was a very encouraging partner. And the other was my commitment, because I took commitments very seriously, my commitment to the people that I had interviewed for my documentary, that I wanted to tell their story. That's what you need in order to get over the resistance. And I had a lot of resistance, and I just had to go and do it. So the motivation is really important. So there's another part of this commitment, and that is investment. Yes, it costs time, energy, and money to get the changes that you want. I don't think there's any way around it. It's going to cost. all of those things. If you want to change your health, you're probably going to need a health checkup. You're probably going to need certain exercise clothes. You may have to change your diet. When I and my husband changed our diet back in January, we had to throw a bunch of food out because it didn't work anymore. And we had to buy new food. And some of that food costs more than what we used to eat. So there is a commitment there, and time, because actually it takes more time for me to create the food that I want to eat now than it used to. Because I had that whole system all worked out, and now I had to change the whole thing. Well, the same is true if you want more love or you want more success in wealth, is there is going to be something, or you have a vision that you want to create. You are going to have to commit time. You're going to have to commit your energy, and you're going to have to make an investment. My film, which turned out to be a film series, I spent way over $40,000, $50,000 by the time I finished those films. There is no free lunch. You have to invest. That goes back to the vision and the motivation. If the vision and the motivation is not big enough, you're going to say, no, I won't do it. Now, here's an interesting thing that I have noticed with my clients, and that is that they're often very willing to invest in work. They're willing to invest in learning how to market, but they aren't willing to invest in themselves. And there's a reason for that, and that is they don't feel worthy. That's the underlying message, the underlying thought pattern for all those behavior patterns. Children learn or decide based on how their parents treated them that they were not good enough, that they were not lovable, that they were not wanted, that they were not worthy, that they needed to be perfect. And those messages make it very difficult for you to assign a value on yourself, on your own growth. And yet, any coach, any business coach will tell you that success in business is only about 10% the strategies you use. And it's 90% what's going on inside, what's going on inside. You need to work on that first. That will sabotage you. Those patterns, that little inner child will sabotage you every time if you don't get her healed, if you don't get her managed, if you don't manage your body. And that's the work I do. I provide my clients with the tools to tame the body and change the patterns. Hi there. Change the patterns so that you can have more success. So how do you do that? Well, it takes action. I'm not a talk therapist. So I want to say a little bit about the difference between a coach and a psychotherapist. Now, coaches do cost a major investment, but that's because a really good coach gets results quickly. And that's what I'm all about. I am a fast person. When I was born, I was being born before the doctors showed up. And I am an early riser. And I take fast action. And I commit. Now, that doesn't work for everybody. Some people would like to work slower. They might want to be with a therapist for 10 years because they want the change to be slow and incremental. I understand, because the truth is these bodies, regardless of the behavior pattern that we have learned as children, has a hard time handling change. I remember when we were just starting out the renovation of our back building, and we hired a bunch of cowboys with bobcats to come in and move a lot of earth. And they did so much change in our yard in several hours that my body I couldn't sleep that night. I was so agitated by the change. Bodies have a hard time adapting to change. That's some of what we experience when we travel and we go through time lag is what is it? Not time lag, jet lag, is that the body needs to adjust to the change, to the fact that not only is the time different, but the location. Have you ever noticed when you're staying in a different place, you wake up a lot? It's like the body wants to, oh, where am I? Where am I? Where am I now? So that's something to think about. If you want to have support for your efforts at changing so that you can have more health or wealth or love in your life, what is your style? What works best for you? And now, if you decide that you don't have the motivation, if you decide that you don't have a big enough vision, and you're okay with where you are, you don't have to change. It's okay. For me, I had to change because I didn't want to die with regret, because I believe that I have a mission, that I have something that I need to accomplish, and that if I didn't, I would really regret it. Also, I secretly believe that we are spiritual beings, and when we resist the nudge, oh my gosh, this reminds me of the story of Muhammad and how he kept on getting nudged to finally do what he needed to do, that the universe nudges us. It wakes us up. It pressures us to fulfill our purpose. Just saying, that's what I believe. You may not believe that, that's fine. So the third thing that you need is trust. So what were the first two? You have to have motivation, you have to have commitment, you have to have trust. So you need to trust yourself that you are going to succeed, that you really believe in yourself. And sometimes that's a tall order if you have grown up believing that you can't trust in yourself. But that is really important. Now, one of the things that I do in my programs is help to develop that muscle of trust. But you have to start out trusting your coach or your therapist. You have to listen and you have to follow their instructions. Now, the problem with psychotherapists is sometimes they don't give you any instructions. They just listen to you. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But you might not change very quickly. In fact, you might not change hardly at all, except that you feel that you're getting love and attention, which is one of the reasons why people go to psychotherapists, is that they get attention. They get somebody to see them. And that's a lot. But if you want to change, you need to take action. And in order to take action, you need to trust your coach. Again, this could be a tall order for somebody who is a controller because they don't want to let go of their control. They want to decide what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And that's not the greatest client for a coach to work with. To get really great success in a short amount of time, you need to follow the instructions of your coach. So how can you develop trust in your coach? Well, you want to do the due diligence. You want to do your homework and find out if this person is a match. Even before you speak to her or him, you want to see what they believe, what they think. Does it resonate with you? Does it fit with you? Do they know, does she know what you've gone through? Does she understand? Does she hear you? And then does she have the talent, the ability, the intelligence, and the strength and the self-confidence to help you get the change that you need? So that's what you have to ask yourself. For any coach, do your work, do your homework, and find out. And then, if that person is right for you, take action. And here's one other thing, and this is the failure. We worry about failure. Oh my gosh, what if I fail? I've invested all this money in, what if I fail? I have worked with a lot of coaches. Remember I said I was a fast person? I've worked with a lot of coaches and I've gotten a lot of results. But I had the intention from the beginning, from the outset, that I'm going to get as much as I can. I could get help out of a phone book because I have that intention. Well, maybe not a phone book, but I remember that at one point in psychology, they were experimenting with this program in which this voice would pretend to be a therapist and would give random answers. And they weren't actually trying to see if the coach, that a program like that would work, although maybe they were, but they were trying to show how people make sense out of whatever they're given. And I happen to believe in magic, in mystery, in, miracles. I believe in miracles. I believe that we get exactly what we need. Oh, which reminds me, one of the other ways to make a decision about a coach is using your intuition. Now, if you haven't used your intuition in a long time, then maybe you don't want to use that. But you can develop your intuition. That, I think, is the nutshell what I have to share with you today. So let me go over the key points. If you want to change, if you want more success in health or wealth or love or all three, you need a vision or a really powerful motivation. Problem with pain is that it's a very powerful motivator, I can tell you that, but once the pain is over, you forget the motivation. 2, you need to make a commitment. You need to see it through. You need to not crap out in the middle of it because you will not get your result. So commitment is essential. And you need to set yourself up and also recognize that there's going to be parts of yourself that resist that commitment. And then finally, 3rd, you need to trust. You need to trust yourself that you can pull this off. You need to believe that you can get the results. If you don't believe, you're not going to get the results. And then, of course, you need to trust your mentor, your coach, your therapist, who is going to guide you where you need to go. That's, I believe, all for today. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you would like to have a conversation with me about the work that I do, there is a link over in the comments section. And I'm also going to put in the comments a link to an interview I had, a testimonial by one of my clients, who talks about the difference between psychotherapy and coaching. At first, coaching may seem like it's more expensive. If you start thinking about coaching in terms of dollars per hour, you're going to be going in the wrong direction because coaching is about results. Quick results. As I told you, I'm a quick person. I've used coaching for a long time. You get faster results. So I will put that link in there and you can check her out and see what she has to say. And you know what? She's actually a psychotherapist. That's it for today. Be brilliant and bye for now.